guys, welcome back to another video. Going to be using the recorder again because in case there's any wind, I do not want to take a risk with the audio. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you some things and they actually really stopped me from being brave. This is the second episode of the playlist that I have called as How to Be More Brave. If you didn't watch the first video, I definitely recommend you to watch it. However, I think I didn't really get to the point in the starting, so do watch it from this timestamp here and you should be good. In the first video, we kind of talked about what brave is and what brave is not, which is kind of important for you to know before you watch this video, because in that video I explained why exactly what we typically think is brave according to society is not what is actually brave. So do check out that video from this timestamp here to get a clear idea on what it actually is and what exactly we're talking about in this video. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing I need you guys to avoid is the wrong company and the wrong environment. This is so important and I wish I knew this before. Imagine if you're filled in a room of people who don't understand you and you hang out with the wrong people. You cannot be brave. Maybe you want to go give a TED talk. That is what you really want to do. And imagine if you are hanging out with kinds of people who, even if there's a tiny little presentation in class and someone goes up to the stage and is saying something, then the people that you're hanging out with, if they are the kind of people who are like, while being around you, they are constantly mocking the person who is giving the presentation. They keep judging the person who is giving the presentation very openly, and you are constantly hanging around with those kinds of people. You cannot expect to be brave enough to go and give a TED talk yourself. And in the same case, in case you go to, I don't know, some literary club or something, and there everyone is very supportive of this stuff. In that kind of a situation, you will eventually, it may not be at the start, but eventually you'll build up the courage to go give a TED talk yourself. Maybe you'll start with giving a tiny presentation, and having the right people to support you is very good. And I know that most people are like, no one around me supports me, and I know that. I've been there. See, right now the only thing you have to do, the thing that is in your control, is stop hanging out with the people that you know are bad for you. Okay, stop hanging out with the people that make you judge yourself for what you want to do. After that, eventually try looking into places where you may potentially meet the sort of people that you think would support the kind of stuff that you're doing. Try not to make any excuses, because there are people like that and you just have to think hard enough to find the answer, but there are people like that. It's not always easy. Stop hanging out with those people. Eventually you will find your people. Okay, trust me. You have to start by cutting out the people, and don't be like on and off with these people. Don't be like, okay, one week you're like, you ghost them, and then the next week you realize that you didn't find the actual nice group of people, so you go back to them. Do not do that. You give it some time. Like, I mean, I'm not saying be rude to them. I'm not saying be, completely cut the friendship. I'm just saying don't hang out with them during these situations. I know that, this age could be a little bit lonely, so don't completely cut your friendship. Let's say, for example, during presentations, don't sit next to these people. Your environment is also very important. Okay, imagine you're in an entire room filled with business geniuses, and you go there and you expect them to appreciate maybe your art. Maybe you really like art, okay? But they are not going to do that, because what they find value in is in business, and you are not in business. Immediately, being in that environment for too long, for like 2 years, for 3 years, for consistently like looking at them not appreciating your stuff, you may start to question your ability in art, right? That's the thing. You do not go and ask the people who don't know or don't feel the same way that you feel about the art stuff. You should go to artists and then ask them for improvement or feedback or something, because they like the same thing that you like and they understand where you're coming from. And I know, like, maybe this business group of people is your family, they're your friends, and that is okay. You don't have to distance yourself from them in any way. Just don't ask them for feedback when you know that they are not the people you should be asking, because that is going to reduce your self-confidence a lot. If you ask the people who have always followed the path of only education, a room full of conservative grandparents. I'm not saying all grandparents are conservative. I know some grandparents are like super sweet, super amazing. That's very good, and you're very lucky to have them if you do. In case if you're in a room of conservative grandparents who have always known only the path of studying, doing some sort of job. That's the only path that they know. That means when you go to a room like that, you should just stay silent about your thoughts. I'm not saying do this with people who actually would understand you. I'm saying when you know that a certain person would not appreciate what you're doing, do not go to them and do not keep repeating your plans. It's just going to demotivate you. It's going to bring down your self-confidence. It's going to ruin your motivation. And then years later, you're going to realize, like, why did I even stop in the first place? And then you realized because every time you brought it up, people didn't encourage it. If you do not have the sort of company, or if you do not have the sort of environment, trust me, you could rely on YouTube. That is what I've done for basically my entire life. These YouTubers that I watch, they have zero idea about how much they have impacted my life and how much they mean to me. I really look up to some of these YouTubers as big sisters, but in reality they don't even know me and I don't really know them in real life, but that is how much they impact me. It gets a little lonely because you can't meet them. They're just, a screen. However, behind the screen, there is a person, okay? And the fact that you exist with these interests also means that there must be someone else in the entire world who exists with these interests. Whenever you do feel a little bit lonely, just know that you are supposed to be your own support system. Okay, you are supposed to lift yourself up and not listen to the crowd. So what you could do is watch people that inspire you. Learn from people that inspire you. Share your goals and stuff only to people who you really trust. I used to do this a lot. I used to tell goals and dreams to every single person and later feel bad about it because they used to give me unexpected advice. There were some people that I really liked, but they also used to give me some advice which was a little bit demotivating. I still like them a lot, but the thing is, it demotivates you. You can just be friends and not agree on some stuff. It doesn't mean just because you're friends, you have to agree on every single thing, right? What you do is you try to find people who are doing what you want to do. Take inspiration from them when you find no inspiration in real life. You have any doubts? Comment. Do not make your excuses. Try and find your support system, and if you cannot, 99% of my support system is still online, so it's fine. What you have to do is just find that support system. If you don't find it outside, just find it internally. You have to be your biggest supporter, but just do not put yourself in situations that constantly demotivate you or constantly invalidate the things that you want. That is like the first step. You just get away from everything that is stopping you, which is, I'm not saying it's bad company, not the one that is helping you in this situation. So you stay away from the wrong situations, the wrong company, and find the support system either in yourself or in the consumption that you do. Like whatever you consume online, the YouTube videos, the books that you read, the shows that you watch, make sure it supports what you want. It shows you that what you want to do is possible and basically inspires you. That's what you should be watching. And that is also basically how you brainwash yourself, through what you're spending your time in. You're at your beginner stage and of course you'll make mistakes, and you constantly looking at your friends, demotivating other people doing the same thing doesn't help. Make new friends. I'm not saying ditch the old ones, of course, hang out with the old ones, but just make new friends that appreciate that sort of stuff, that support that sort of stuff. Just put yourself in the right places, and trust me, putting yourself in the right places helps you so much more than contemplating ever will. It goes slow, but putting yourself in the situation where it seems possible will slowly start changing your mind and will get rid of your limiting thoughts that say that doing that is basically impossible for you. And that is my guide on how to brainwash yourself. Another thing is self-hate. That is something you should definitely avoid. It's not to say that if you hate yourself, you'll not get anywhere. That is not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that it'll stop you more than anything else will stop you. If you hate yourself, what you'll do is that every single tiny mistake that you make, you will judge yourself more than what other people are actually doing. You will start demotivating yourself, and nothing stops you more than demotivating yourself at every single mistake that you make. And I know that going from self-hate to self-love is a huge journey. It doesn't happen overnight. The first thing, I think you really need to understand that, the minute you start something, you won't be an expert at it. Experts are experts because of the mistakes that they've made. You really need to understand this, like, at a different level, that you cannot expect to be an expert at the starting. You're always going to be a beginner at something that you are a beginner at, and you should allow yourself to be that beginner. You should allow yourself to start out messy, to start out not being the best or being the worst in the room, and that is okay. Because of self-hate, if you keep saying, okay, I did this so terribly, I'm the worst person in the room, and it just slows you down. I don't know about what happens with the manifestation part of it, but even if you keep affirming that to yourself, even if it had no effect, it still slows you down, and that is not something that we want. You don't want to be trying to be a musician for the rest of your life. So self-hate is something that you should absolutely avoid. I'm not saying like you should be completely in love with yourself and stuff, but I'm saying just don't slow yourself down because of your self-hate. Imagine your best friend is making the same mistakes that you're making. If it were yourself, you'd be like, okay, I messed up really bad, I'm the worst person in the room. However, if it was your best friend, would you go tell her that, you messed it up really bad, you were the worst person in the room? Is that what you're going to say? Absolutely not, right? You'll be like, it's okay, whatever you did, it was fine, at least you started. Or you'd say something that she actually did, right? And that is the way that you are supposed to be speaking to yourself. Just speak to yourself as if you are your best friend. And I know it takes time, it takes practice, but that is how you're supposed to be speaking to yourself. I hope that example helped. The last thing that you have to avoid is taking gigantic steps. This is a mistake that I've made and I've learned through, and I do not want you guys to make the same mistake that I did. Say for example, you suddenly get the opportunity to go and give a TED Talk. It doesn't mean that you just go and give a TED Talk and expect yourself to be amazing, right? That is the biggest mistake that I did. It's that I used to take gigantic leaps. And you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that if you take gigantic leaps, it's going to be bad. In some situations, they end up just fine. It is more sustainable to start slow. Let me explain what this actually means. Me for example, I used to be quite awkward when talking to people. If I wanted to avoid something, if I didn't know what to say, what to do, I used to constantly smile. I used to avoid eye contact. I used to be super scared to talk to my own friends, let alone strangers. Used to be too scared to walk alone on the street. Used to feel uncomfortable walking alone on the street because people stare at you. In a state like that, do you think I can expect myself to just be able to go and give a TED Talk and not break down? It's not going to happen. It doesn't actually work that way. You start small. You think of the next step to get closer to this. What do you need in a TED Talk? The stage fright is what is stopping you. If you have a really great idea, you want to give a TED Talk, but the stage fright is what is stopping you. You start really small. Start by, going out alone and being comfortable with people staring at you. And then start talking more to your friends and start learning how to not be that awkward. Start being more comfortable with making conversations with people, which I'm still working on. And start slow like that. And then eventually, after you get through that, after you feel like you've mastered that, you come to giving presentations in class. And then after you master that, you go to some workshop where you are supposed to speak. You get comfortable with speaking in a small teeny group of people. Then you enter competitions about the same thing, randomly volunteering for people on stage. Like if there's some event going on, the performers, they ask for a volunteer, start participating or volunteer to go on stage. And then eventually someday, after taking these tiny steps, you'll reach the point where you'll be confident enough and where you'll be able to handle, okay, this is very important, you will be able to handle giving a TED Talk on stage. But if you just go at this state without knowing any of these, without doing any of these, if you just directly jump and be like, okay, I am supposed to be brave. I know that I really want to give a TED Talk and I want to make an impact. So that just means that I'm going to go onto stage right now. I'm just going to enroll myself and just expect myself to miraculously be able to handle it because I just now decided that I want to be brave. That is not how this works, okay? That will get you either it will get you hurt. It is not sustainable. If you keep doing these gigantic leaps and you don't do the things that you're supposed to do in between, you can't keep doing this in a long run. And it's a process. Learning to do each and everything, in the process is it is fun. Being brave is not supposed to be like scary and resisting and like forcing yourself or something like that, right? It is supposed to be fun. So it's a process. It's almost like a journey, okay? You learn through the journey, and the journey is what is fun, not always the destination. Whatever the goal is, after you fix the goal, start as tiny as possible. If now you feel like even walking on the street is scary and is impossible, someday you'll feel like talking to strangers is possible. And then someday you'll feel like giving a TED talk on stage is possible.